Frank.
One of the old Mohler books, I'm sure you've read, he talks about the gift of faith. I could say maybe a few times in my life I've experienced it. He said that one thing, he said, you're going to know what's going to happen when the gift of faith is on.
Mm-hmm.
But he said, he gave me circumstance where some little girl or lady was dying. I mean, hardly breathing. He knew without a miracle.
Yeah, right.
So he said he uses his faith and stretches it as much as he can when he comes to his end. His faith end. Then he looks to God, and God will give him God's faith, the gift of faith.
Yeah, the gift of faith.
It's different than Bible faith.
Yeah.
I mean, it's out of the word, but it's a gift of the Spirit.
Well, and honestly, my take on that is that's a grace to take us where we need to be.
Can you explain,
but we can grow up into Jesus in all things. In other words, I don't want you... What Smith is saying is dead on, because I've experienced the gift of faith, and it's ridiculous. It's like when you're in the gift of faith, it humbles you, because we're always saying we have faith. But when you're in the gift of faith, it can't not happen. There's a boldness and a certainty and a confidence that's on you. It's almost like God lets you experience a tiny little bit of what He must be like all the time. Like He's the Lord, right? And I've been in situations. I remember I walked up to a lady. She had a 3-base walker. She could hardly walk. She was a frail little thing. And I said, can I prophesy over you? It just came out of my heart. I saw her walking. I saw her running. Her husband sitting there. She's a frail little thing. Sickness had whittled her down, and she could barely make it up there with this walker. And I said, can I prophesy over you? And she said, yeah. I grabbed the 3-base walker. Never even thought about it. Now, don't you do this. Don't you do this. I grabbed it, and I never looked behind me or nothing. I just grabbed it, and I threw it out over my back of my head. In a church. Boom! I heard it hit and crash. Fire of God! And she just crashed to the floor like a dead woman. And her husband's sitting there going... I said, she's absolutely fine, I assure you. I saw she jumped up and was running and crying in circles. She took off and ran the whole way around the church. And then she fell on her face here and was just crying. It was a gift of faith. There was a lady that came up 10 years from a bus accident in a bus. And it was a really bad accident. It rolled, and she was crippled for 10 or 12 years. And I said, turn, just run. Just run. Run. Don't let the first couple of steps deceive you. Run. And it was real, like I was aggressive. It almost looked like I was mad at her. I wasn't. She turned, she ran, looked like she was going to fall flat on her face for 3 steps. But I knew she couldn't fall. I knew she wasn't going to fall. It was a gift of faith. I wasn't trying to believe that. I knew that. And that 4th step, she took off like she was never in a bus wreck. I could tell you a bunch of stories of gift of faith, but here's what I don't want us to do. I don't want us to just rely on that, because we're supposed to grow up into Him in all things to the full measure of the stature of Christ, which the Word's telling me that I can continue to grow up into Him from faith to faith and glory to glory. So what the gift of faith does is God intervening in gift form to take me where I haven't arrived, to show me what I haven't seen. It doesn't always show up. If it showed up every time, we'd see every person we prayed for healed through the gift of faith. The gift of faith isn't our goal. Us believing through the finished work of Jesus Christ is our highest goal. Don't lean on the gift of faith, but man, when it comes, you'll know it, and yay, God. You see what I'm saying? So I've seen tons and tons of people healed by the believer priesthood. These signs shall follow those that believe. I want us to all go after that. If the gift of faith shows up and takes me like I'm over my head on the phone, I get an open vision and my whole kitchen turns into a sky, and God unfolds a picture to me that shows me the outcome of the trauma that's on my phone. An open vision where all I could see was this vision, and I'm standing in my kitchen and I couldn't see my kitchen. It's happened to me 3 times, and it's phenomenal when it happens. And you think you're ready for that stuff, but you're not. And I'm on the phone and I watch this thing unfold, and I tell the woman, you need to stop crying. Your babies aren't going to die. And I'm freaking out on her. She said, well, I do feel peace. I said, peace? Peace? She doesn't know I'm seeing my whole kitchen and this whole thing unfold. Peace? Do you understand your children are in the hand of Almighty God? No, she didn't understand. Scripturally, she's supposed to believe that, but her babies are dying and she's overwhelmed, and I'm freaking out on her. My wife runs in the kitchen and says, honey, what? Because she knew why she called, because I told her, and she ran in to pray. Now she hears me yelling at the lady. But I'm overwhelmed. My kitchen turned into a sky. She calls me the next day. Pastor Dan, she's on my phone machine. I'm not making fun of her. Real the high-pitched, squeaky voice crying, Pastor Dan, your prayer, it worked. I'm like, my prayer worked? My kitchen turned into a sky. My prayer didn't work. It was a gift of faith. Boom. I said, I'm done talking about this. Call me in the morning with a good report. And I hung up the phone on a distraught mom whose children were in NICU dying. They were unplugging the respirator on the heels of our conversation. And I said, I'm done talking about this. Call me in the morning. And I hung up on her. Why? I was overwhelmed. Gift of faith. Boom. So much authority in that. Watch. This is where people have trouble with this. Don't have trouble with it. It's because God gave the gift. It's as if God's speaking. Isn't that who we are? Ambassadors of Him? Why do we lay hands on the sick? Because He's in us. And when we lay hands, He's laying hands. You get what I'm saying? So when I said that, there's so much authority in it through the faith that came through the gift. It's as if God was standing there saying it Himself. That's how powerful that is. And I've experienced it. And I know exactly what he's talking about. He saw it at an amazing, like Smith did off the chart stuff in the gift of faith. When you read some of the healings, like you don't just do that stuff to see if it works. But no, you're right. But our goal is to believe Him, right? So if you were the enemy, wouldn't you attack what the church believes? Wouldn't you get her to fight over it? Wouldn't you get her to take loss personal, loved ones, trauma, and start judging God through all these experiences and come out with a whole mixed bag of who God is to where we can't even agree, and now we all have to meet in different places because we all see Him different based on our life? Well, that would be the devil. And unfortunately, that has happened. Yeah? Yeah.